And for some questions or answers. As our Zoom host just conveyed, we are recording this session. So if you don't consent to be recorded, please drop off at this point. But my name is Dave Treat. I'm from Accenture. I have the honor of being the co-executive sponsor with Maria Gotch. Accenture and the Partnership Fund have been running the FinTech Innovation Lab here in New York for now over a decade. This is our 11th year. And excited to tell you about it, excited to answer questions and hopefully inspire you to apply. I'm going to run through some overview of what the FinTech Innovation Lab is all about for about 10 minutes. And then we've invited one of our more successful alumni to join and share his personal experiences with the lab and what he and his company got out of participating as part of our class of 2016. So I'll hold off and I'll introduce Benji in a few minutes here. So the FinTech Innovation Lab, it's a sorry, is there a question?
Oh, couldn't get it.
Nope. So yeah, please stay on mute, and we will have a time for questions and answers later. The FinTech Innovation Lab was, as I said, started over a decade ago, and in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, the recognition that of the focus and energy needed to grow and invigorate and at this point just extend New York as the financial epicenter of the world and as a source of innovation and entrepreneur activity. And we've been wildly successful. We'll go through some of the stats in a second. The structure of the program is designed for early and growth stage companies, focused on the financial services, both inclusive of insurance. We started an insurance track several years ago, and it's been wildly successful. Of startups, early and growth stage startups, to be able to be directly mentored from senior executives from the world's leading financial firms. And so it's a pro bono activity on behalf of these firms. They're donating their time. It's a non-commercial environment, meaning you're not there to pitch. You're there to you're not there to sell. You're there to describe what your company offers and to get really very candid and direct feedback from the financial services firms that are contributing their time. And we really view it as a massive acceleration of the startups that participate in the program of their life cycle. And Benji will describe exactly that dynamic for his company. But it's a 3-month program where you get the direct mentorship in a very curated, structured, guided fashion through the financial services firms that are most interested in helping, and we've been wildly successful, right? So if you look at some of the stats on the page now, of our 89 alum, we've had 18 exits or acquisitions. We've raised over close to now $2 billion have been raised by our alumni. 1,300 jobs created in the New York area. You see some of the names and logos of the alumni listed down below. The stat, and I might turn to the team to correct me if I'm getting it wrong, or what the latest number is, but of our 89 companies, 81%?
81%, yep.
81% are still in business, which for startups is obviously almost the inverse of what one would expect for the survivability of startups in this space. And we really think that the rapid maturation that comes from participating with the program plays a lot into that ability to get the direct mentoring from your intended customers in a completely candid and non-sales environment is just massively beneficial. You see the logos here of our sponsoring financial firms, and hopefully you're looking at this list and saying, these are all of my target clients, right? These are the leading financial institutions on the planet, as well as we've got the venture capital community very much involved, and they're there to play a role in their interest in supporting the whole entrepreneurial environment. So What do you receive as being part of the program? The mentorship. Each institution that's selected, each startup that's selected is paired then with 5 or 6 participating financial institutions or insurance companies. You get a chance to in a very curated fashion, target the different executives within these companies that would have the best input or be most interested in your product. So being able to set up time with members of the CFO organization if it's financial included, or the risk organization if it's a risk-based product, or being handheld through all of the senior executive stakeholders in these banks, financial institutions that could best give you advice on shaping your offerings and capabilities. And so it is that curated access and privileged access through the organizations that is maybe at the heart of why this is so beneficial. In addition to that, we offer a leadership program, and we've got a mentor network, which has well over 30 entrepreneurs who we run events and sessions with, where to get advice from those who've either been on the journey, been on your journey, succeeded on your journey, or play in the entrepreneurial community. We have a workspace that we can help with. We've done it in different forms and fashions each year. Obviously geared towards our COVID context most recently, and at the end of the day, from a value exchange perspective, the partnership takes a small warrant in return for participation. Let's go to the next slide. The leadership program that we run as part of this, we go through a series of topics that we tweak and tune each year based on feedback. But we run different panel discussions around things like how to navigate procurement organizations. What is the regulatory and compliance environment, and we hear from ex-regulators or current regulators in some cases, and to have that access to expertise that we can facilitate and enable. We offer access to incredibly senior business leaders in the region. We've had Henry Kravis, Ajay Banga from MasterCard, James Gorman. You can see the list here. Michael Corbett, Fred Wilson, Evan Greenberg. So every year we actually have really enthusiastic reach out from some of the senior most leaders in the region, to participate. They love engaging with our startups, and they love the back and forth. And those are some of the best sessions we run every year. And then additionally, I alluded to above, but we do offer specific meetings with regulators in DC and in New York to get direct guidance and advice around the current and future envisioned reg modernization that may have impact on the fintech capabilities that you're building. And then additionally, through the partnership fund and through support that we at Accenture offer at different times, different support around your messaging, PR training, the whole engagement process. The mentor network, we've got some really seasoned entrepreneurs that have successfully launched and scaled their own fintech companies to act as mentors and advisors to those that are selected for the program. Really just a fantastic crew here. Andy Brown, former CTO of UBS, is our Chief Technology Officer in residence. We've got Charles Blanner from Citi as our CISO in residence. Chris Conde is the former CEO of SunGard. Jonah Crane, former Deputy Assistant Secretary from a regulatory community, a regulatory agency. Felix Kuhnman from our insurance executive in residence. David Mordecai, scientist in residence. Maria Vullo, insurance regulator in residence. And then we've got executives from multiple companies that, again, all year after year come back to really lean in, and they love spending time with the startups and vice versa. And you can envision all of the dot connecting and guidance and advice that flows from that. We are looking for emerging tech companies and startups, very focused on servicing the financial services and insurance industries, as implied by the fintech name, B2B and B2B2C. We look at solutions from other industries sometimes some of our more successful startups are where there has been success in a different industry that is very applicable to financial institutions and the insurance space. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have originated as a fintech organization, as long as there's the applicability to the financial services and insurance industry. You are most welcome to apply. We have found over the years that it's important that there be a beta, at least a beta version of the technology product, something to show, something to demo. It just can't be PowerPoint and vision. Having something demonstrable as being key, and this is very much focused on New York and as a pro bono civic activity within New York itself. And so being able to both be present during the program in New York, as well as your either current or intended presence in the New York area, this really at the heart of it is meant and intended to drive up innovation, employment, and job growth and creation in the New York City, New York environment. Typically, companies that apply are from seed to Series B, and so we really, it's in some respects are looking for companies that are at that sweet spot of, you have something, but you're open to be coached and molded and would benefit from that guided coaching and mentorship that the financial institutions are eager to provide. Topic-wise, we go through a process every year where we poll the financial financial services institutions and insurance companies on the key topics that are relevant to them in the moment, and this prioritized set changes and tweaks every year. What you're seeing, what you're seeing up on the screen right now is what we've heard from the financial institutions most recently as to where their minds are and their priorities lie. And so huge focus currently on blockchain and all things digital asset, digital currency, DeFi. There's a resurgence of this topic. It was quiet for a few years and now hot again. Cyber is persistently a top issue. Cyber resilience, fraud, identity, and the like. Data has been a perennial focus around all things data, alternatives and synthetic data, being able to better work with data, provide better means to manage it, to harvest insights from it, to be able to work with sources in different ways, obviously tie in with machine learning and AI and the like. Digital client engagement we've heard quite a bit around. Certainly there's been a COVID acceleration of what the interaction models in the digital world require, what works, what doesn't work. And so I think that's a really interesting theme for this year around how do you effectively reach, engage, acquire, onboard, and service customers in a hybrid hybrid model. Future of work plays into the same construct. We've seen this massive extension and focus now of the acceleration of immersive experiences. Obviously, the hype over the past couple of weeks around Facebook's name change, metaverse is a topic that ultimately brings together digital currency, digital identity, digital objects, and immersive experiences. Future of work, whether it's the fact that we're on video right now, and the means and the control frameworks and the servicing capabilities in our new future environment as the technology advances with XR and with a variety of different platform capabilities. Future of work is key. Inclusion and diversity has been it's been a major focus of ours for quite some time. Financial inclusion, both for un and underbanked, as well as diversity and inclusion tools to be able to support creating the communities, the communities that within all of our financial institutions that reflect the communities that we're serving, and to be able to maximize the value that comes from having truly diverse workforces and being able to attract diverse employee bases and customers and the like. New insurance products. There's obviously a wave of technology that's been important around 5G, Internet of Things, wearables. That the impact then on the insurance industry, both from the ability to better measure risk, manage risk, and ultimately improve the safety and quality and productivity of people. And then very timely for what's going on in Glasgow right now. The banks are obviously deeply focused on sustainability. All things, climate, ESG, social impact, and the like, but climate certainly very hot this week. So these themes came out. That doesn't mean if you're looking at that list and your company's theme doesn't pop off this particular page, that this is just what we've heard from the banks and compiled. That don't let that dissuade you. If you've got something that's hot that you think is hot that's not on this list. Let's go to the next slide. Key dates. So we're doing an early application process this year, which really the value proposition here is something new for us. Is if you actually submit by November 19th, if we see something in the application that we think that you could improve, we'll reach out. That doesn't mean we'll reach out to say if your application's fantastic, great, we'll accept it, we'll move on. But we have received feedback from prior years that we had some, always have some last minute submissions that when we look at them, we wish they could have tweaked something, done something a little bit different, the misunderstanding around the intent or nature of the program. And so we wanted to really encourage everyone to apply early, because if we do see something that could be improved in the application and make it more relevant as the banks start to review them and run through the selection process, we want to offer that service. So couldn't encourage you more to take advantage of that. Don't wait till the end of November to submit. Submit an application as early as possible so you are afforded that opportunity. We take in all the applications. We then go through a whole process of review and selection and prioritization. And for those that are selected, we whittle the list down and do a round of demos. We are endeavoring to do these in person this year. We haven't done them. We didn't do them in person last year, so we are intending to do it. We'll obviously be dependent upon the health and safety guidance in the city. But that is targeted for February 2nd. Sorry, that will be on February 2nd to February 4th. And then the program starts in late March and runs for 3 months, culminating in a really exciting demo day at the end of June every year, where we get all of the financial institutions, the media, we get the entrepreneurial community together, and it's really just a wonderful moment. Contact information at the bottom, and more team, have I drained the slides here? Was that the last one by memory? I did. Excellent. All right. So that took longer than I'd like. So I want to get immediately to Benji, just because I find it so valuable to hear from someone who's gone through the program to really get a sense for it and to understand. So Benji is the CEO of T-Rex, as part of the class of 2016. Benji, let me turn it over to you, and want you to give the classic summary of T-Rex, and then maybe we'll jump right into the how you heard about the lab and where your starting point for it.
Sure, happily, Dave. Good to speak to all of you, and there's really nothing that I am more passionate about speaking about the T-Rex journey than the lab and the lab's impact. But before that, as Dave asked, by way of intro for T-Rex, T-Rex is a fintech company that focuses on complex capital markets. We have a particular focus on, I think, that last point of themes that Dave was hitting, ESG. We started in the renewables sector, asset-backed finance for solar, wind, and really any other renewable asset. And we make the financing of those and the monitoring of them from a data management perspective more transparent, as opposed to having an 80 tab, 5,000 column per tab Excel model. you have T-Rex, and you have all of that entirely transparent, so you can actually get more liquidity. More investors can invest in these complex assets, especially the renewables ones.
Awesome. Thanks, Benji. I want to kind of, I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and let's kind of run through the journey from start to finish. So we'll end with kind of what's happened post lab, but let's go all the way back to kind of, your pre-lab experience. Where did you hear about it? And, and just, talk about why did you apply? And then maybe layer on of, did those initial attributions of why you applied, how did they change once you were in and through the program?
Yeah, I mean, you're taking me back to end of 2015, because we were, as you said, in the 2016 class. And so we applied to end of 2015. We heard about the lab from somebody at Credit Suisse who was in the IT organization, a senior architect, who we were speaking to about attempting to get permission to get a proof of concept going. And she said, look, we're involved in this lab. I'm sort of loosely involved. You should look it up. Looked at the website, and turned out the application deadline was the next day. And so at the time, we were looking for catalyzing factors for the business. And we hadn't yet gotten to proving out product market fit. We were reasonably confident with where we were, but we were looking for that engagement, that feedback, and the lab seemed like a good candidate for that. And so we sort of blindly went in, applied, and then learned a ton more over the course of the application process. And that sort of took us to pitching, et cetera. I'm going to go straight into that.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously there's a credibility point there. That's, obviously the application process couldn't have been too hard if you were able to turn it around in a day. So maybe just talk about the your experience with the overall application process and how, and level of difficulty or guidance, tips and tricks.
From the early piece of it, I think it was this is taking me back a little too far, but I remember it being straightforward enough. I mean, it was a lot of work. It took a few of us to go in and make sure that we were polished and presented, but we had enough confidence and conviction of who we were, and the questions were straightforward. And it was, I think that was like curated us into the right place. We were like, okay, this seems like it could be a fit. And then we sort of crossed our fingers and said, we hope that we can make it to the finals, because we know that if we actually pitch, that we'll have a much better chance. Be able to show our wares, tell our story, answer questions about why complex capital markets are our focus, why renewables are our focus, and the problem that we're solving, as well as the solution that we believe that we have. And that's it. And then we were eventually selected for finals presentations. And it was, I think we had 20 minutes, 10 minutes to present, and there was actually a timer. I remember Maria Gosh putting a timer on the chair, and it would buzz if you went over. And so we put together a good deck and practiced that enough times. And I think I distinctly remember getting to 9 minutes and 52 seconds and being finished before the buzzer went off. And then there were 10 minutes of questions. And there's a room of like 35, 40 people, something like that, from the financial institutions, as well as a bunch of the execs. Felt a bit like a firing squad. But that is ultimately the panel that you want to want you. And that it really, unbeknownst to me at the time, it set the tone for what we would get out of the lab. We would pitch, we would be tested, we would get questioned, we would get feedback, and all of that would make us sharper and stronger and more honed as a company. And this was before we were even in it. And then after that, we passed that test, got to the demo stage, where all of the financial institutions walk around and they show me a demo before they finally select it. I'm not sure if you guys still do that, but it was, we felt very good about that one as well. And then we got in.
Yeah, so let me pick up on the feedback point. So now kind of getting into the program, what kind of feedback, what feedback did you receive, and did it change your trajectory or direction or strategic priorities? Like, just to talk about the nature of the feedback and your experiences with it.
Yeah, so during the lab, you mean during the lab, Dave?
Yeah.
We had 5 financial institutions that were our mentor orgs. And we got into proofs of concept with maybe 4 of them during that time, which was quite intensive and almost like a second job, but one that was well worth it, as I'll sort of play out later. But during that, we got feedback that was probably in 1 or 2 categories. Number one, validating. We thought that we were pitching something, as I mentioned before we applied to the lab, we didn't know if there was product market fit, but we had like pretty high conviction that we were building something that was quite useful. And we saw that we cut down on, one of our proofs of concept was at Credit Suisse. And I remember it would take them 72 hours after they hit F9 on an Excel just to get the result. And they cut that down to seconds with T-Rex because it was something that was purpose-built. So like, okay, there's clearly some value there, not necessarily enough to sell it. Second category was things that we could improve on, perhaps a bit obvious, but those were not necessarily from a product perspective where we were expecting it. It was the great abyss of go-to-market. How do you actually successfully navigate a financial institution? And it seems like it should be so much easier than it is. Even when you're experienced in it and have the scars to prove it, it feels like it should be a lot easier. And it rarely is. But learning that and being in the trenches to show the progression and all of like a number of different paths that progression can take, both through the business, through technology and procurement, was instrumental. And we got some of that directly as feedback. Pitch this way, check this box so that you can make it to the next stage of the game.
Yeah, and the mentors, how we just talk a little bit about how engaged your mentors were, the intensity level, what was your process like with your mentors?
The ones from our financial institutions.
Yep.
They were invaluable. I mean, all 5 of them were instrumental for us in helping us navigate their respective organizations. They're like your ultimate Sherpa, where they can get you all the way up to the C-suite, but also all the way to exactly the right analyst on a desk, front office, mid office, back office. They have the executive blessing to take you around, but they also have the know-how and the motivation to do so for 12 weeks and sometimes for 5 years. For example, Scott Condren, who was the former CTO of BlackRock, we were the first company that it was the first year in 2016 that BlackRock was involved in the lab. We were the first company they worked with, and Scott took us all over the BlackRock world, from various different funds to the Aladdin side to the investment side. And since he's subsequently retired from BlackRock and is now on our board, and is invaluable as an actual personal mentor of mine and various other people within the company.
Yeah, no, it's I was hoping you'd tell that story. It's just, going from mentor to board member is obviously a spectacular testimony to your success and obviously the way the program can best play out. Let's keep pulling on that thread. Just talk about post-lab experiences and the journey. What happened post-lab? What had changed? Obviously, with Scott, you had an enduring mentor, but what else happened post-lab, and what did you benefit from the program in that post-lab experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think the lab, like the roughly 12 weeks of the lab, it's like the gestation period. Like you have a baby so that it can like ultimately go live a life, but you need that initial 9 months. Same thing, you need the initial 12 weeks, and it's super intensive. It felt like having a second job, but it was the launching pad for now the past 5 years. And I can say without a doubt that T-Rex wouldn't be here without the lab. We certainly wouldn't have been able to achieve the heights that we are. So speaking to a couple other things that I think it was like around the last day of the lab, Citi was one of our mentors, and I was introduced to Bill Hartnett, who ran the capital markets investment team. And I got 30 seconds into my pitch, which at this stage was very well practiced. And he said, pause right there. And then he gave me the next 5 minutes of the pitch. And he said, I know exactly what you're doing. And here's how it could impact the entire Citi world. A little bit of which I had an idea of, and the rest was just like eye-opening. It was like seeing in color for the first time. But there was nothing that Bill could do. You know, he's sitting in an investment seat. He needed a business. So when we went out to raise money 2.5 years later, I emailed Bill and said, look, we're going to raise. Can we come back in and talk? And he said, absolutely, come in. And he brought in a business head. And within 2 weeks, Citi had committed to investing. You know, a few months later after their process, they'd actually invested. And they're now also a customer. As of knock on wood, we're a day or two away from them becoming our biggest customer by a couple of orders of magnitude. And in a way, you know, obviously it's huge for us, it's huge for our investors, but it will be transformational for one of their biggest, most critical businesses, and for the entire structured finance industry that business services. And so, you know, it has certainly benefited both sides in this way, and even for that, we're just at the beginning.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's just I'm eager to see if there are any questions. We've got a small enough group here that we can be more interactive. Just a couple of points of advice for applicants. And let me spot you one that you started to say more about. It felt like I had a second day job during the program. Just the advice around. I frequently hear, let me get you started. I frequently hear that, in hindsight, coming out of the program, from a CEO and team, I wish I had allocated more time. Just talk that through. What do you mean by a second job?
Yeah, I mean, that's spot on. It always reminds me a little bit of college, where like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to do your undergrad. How can you, I look back and I'm like, I could have gotten more out of it, but I got a lot out of it at the same time. So, you're in startup mode, whatever stage you're at. And to have the demands of having to trot around to 5 or 6 financial institutions, prepare, show up, follow up to big exec level meetings, like with CTOs of these institutions, is no small task. At the same time, you want to maintain your momentum in your business as usual, and so there's a huge commitment there, and there's really, I think, for 12 weeks, clearing as much as you can and focusing on getting as much and building as much of the foundation of what the lab can give you as you can will launch you for the next year, 2 years, 5 years in our case. It is my advice is I mean, quite simply, and perhaps obviously after this, take as much as you can. It's all there. The resources of your financial institutions are there, of the broader mentor network, even of other financial institutions. Go make the best possible impression that you can from where you are and team that you have and the company that you have. Make that impression, because it will be a long-lasting impression, and get as much out of it. The whole concept of mentorship, as you said, Dave, it's not about selling during this time, and really tweaking that mentality. Everybody wants to say, like we'll do mentorship, but really we're ultimately trying for long-term sales, because like that's going to move the needle. And I don't want to totally throw cold water on that. Sure, keep that in the back of your mind, but truly have it in the back of your mind, and take this approach of receiving, asking for mentorship feedback, because that inherently will lead to more sales directly with these ones now, later, and or with others down the line, where you take the feedback. Not all 5 of our financial institutions were smashing successes. We learned from D.E. Shaw that wasn't a fit for us. Their business wasn't a fit for us, and vice versa. The other 4 were quite successful, but I don't look at that as a shortcoming. of ours or of the labs or even of theirs. It was really good learnings, and it was very detailed learnings in terms of what we did with them as well.
Yeah, let me go back again into one of your stories and get you to extend it a little bit. That that dynamic of the city exec who cut you off, and then you listened for 5 minutes, right? I'm just going to preview for all of you, right? Maria, if you get into the program, Maria and I, mostly Maria, is will deliver a speech around your listen, right? This is access to the people that you want to listen to and hear from, and it's the whole point of it. You just, in terms of the meetings that you would have, Benji, just talk through that. I feel compelled to spike the ball on that one. So talk more around that, the rationale for the mindset to have going into these interactions with the mentors and the banks.
I mean, that's exactly it. It's getting, so I think the first piece of the mindset before you listen is to give them the right surface area to opine on. And so getting your pitch super tight, and I'm sure that that you guys will do this, but honing down to the elevator pitch. There's so many opportunities within the first days and weeks of the lab to really hone it. It's exceptionally important. Get it down, get it tight, because you don't want to go on for 5 minutes. If you have 30 minutes with a CTO and you go for 5 or 10 minutes of intro, and she or he is then, sort of losing the plot, et cetera, but you don't have time for them to come back, ask some questions, and then perhaps provide advice, perhaps provide feedback, and or tell your mentor these are all the people that you should go to. And so it is instrumental to be prepared, so that you can be nice and tight, like that example that you called out, Dave, where I gave a 30-second elevator pitch and Bill was like, got it. Like, I know the whole universe at Citi. You couldn't begin to know the universe at Citi because you're not on the inside. You haven't spent decades here, but I understand what you do. I understand the applications you're going for. And there are actually a whole bunch more applications beyond what you're even thinking about that are worthy pursuits here.
Awesome. What else? Just maybe just do one or two more points of advice for the applicants, right, at this stage of the journey. What else what other guidance would you give?
I think that if and when you're in the lab, availing yourself of the non-financial institution mentors or advisors. Andy Brown is an absolute legend, CTO in residence, and that guy's been more instrumental to T-Rex than any other individual. And we met him through the lab, and then he became an advisor thereafter. Chris Conde, similarly. I mean, Chris Conde is probably the #2 fintech exec ever after Mike Bloomberg. And he just sort of rocks up in his bow tie and hangs out and drops wisdom. And all you have to do is go engage him in conversation. It's not going to happen if you haven't done that, if you haven't actually engaged them. But you do that, you show up with your elevator pitch, remind them of that, bring in a tidbit from the lab or from your business as usual and ask. But it's not just them. There is a stacked roster of advisors. And we did an okay job, maybe a good job, but that's one place that we absolutely could have done better. And maybe the other piece is similarly with the venture capital firms. Again, a stacked roster of those. And that's one place that I definitely didn't do a good enough job of taking the opportunity to have a mentor there and going through our pitch.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Benji. And let's open it up. Like I said, we've got a small enough group here. Awesome. Sarvat, I saw you come off mute. Go for it.
Awesome. Benji, that was terrific. Thanks for sharing it. And David, sure. Thanks for coordinating. I've been curious. I mean, we're very encouraged, of course, and to apply it and try to apply it early. But can you give us a sense, David, of in your selection process, where did some of the applicants fall short who were not selected, right? So that will help as well in terms of not only fit but also the process itself. Yeah,
maybe I'll call out 3 things, and then I'd be interested. I'm not, Benji, if you have a view, happy to have you weigh in on it too, just because you certainly interacted with the others as part of the other value proposition, as you get to know your cohort very well.
Totally.
Let me pick off a couple of themes. We'll always have a few applicants who come in and it's just it's very clear that they're just too advanced in the journey. They're too fixed on their offering, and they'll get feedback to say, look, they don't, they're not looking for mentoring, they're looking for a sales channel, and that's not what we're about, right? That's not a fit. There's a filter that'll get applied in the selection criteria, which really is, is there the openness, willingness, or space for feedback, because that's the intent. And so we've had applicants come in, like I said, and just clearly convey, I've baked it fully, will you eat it? Rather than let's talk about the ingredients and the like. I think the other dynamic is where there's not enough clarity on the what it is, right? You'll have through the application itself and through the demos, if you're invited, you'll have a chance to tell your story. And to the point that Benji made, the more crisply you can tell the story, the better, not the more comprehensively. And I'm going to bleed in another point here. We sometimes have applicants come in that have a bit of a utility model, right? I can do anything for anyone. Right, and they try to play to the breadth of the audience potential, in a variety of different ways, versus the specificity and focus of an offering. It does not hurt you that to be successful, to get into the lab with a specific focus area will then open the door to the guidance and advice to say, hey, use your widget in these, think about these other 3 areas that you're not focused on. That'll come. But in the application process, if you're trying to be everything to everyone, there won't be a point to engage, or Benji, I loved your framing of, you're not providing the right surface area, to engage. And so, do I have another one? Benji, give me a chance to think for a second. Do you have any guidance you'd play in there?
It's a little hard for me just because I haven't been on the other side from a receiving application perspective, but I think that your point, Dave, is spot on. If I just think about our class and even the classes subsequently, there were no 2 companies in our class that were certainly not identical, but even that close. There were some that at best were adjacent. And the point is that there was nothing that was utility like. Everybody had their very specific focus on what they were trying to deliver, et cetera. And so that's the product. And I'm just effectively reiterating what you said.
Yeah. Morteza, did you have one?
Yeah, I was thinking through this, and I think a couple things that I'd add is the application talks a lot about the problem, but not enough about the solution. So that's one we see commonly that can leave to kind of not making the cutoff. And the other one is not tailored enough to the financial services and insurance companies. Lastly, not covering the differentiating factors, especially in a very crowded field. So those were the 3 I wanted to add.
Maybe you just remind me something, Morteza. And Dave, tell me if it's no longer this way, but you need to have specific financial institutions that want to work with you, that want to mentor you, and they need to actually choose you. And so I'm not suggesting that you actually need to go call out which of the 44 so you want to work with. But to Morteza's point, having something that is actually going to appeal to some of those so that some of those actually choose to work with you is critically important.
Guys, that was super helpful. Thanks a lot for taking the question.
Thanks. Andrea, so I saw you come off next.
Yeah, I just have one quick question. We have a split leadership team where we have part of our leadership team here in the US and part of our leadership team in India. So I wanted to understand how important it is to have either the whole team participating. Do we just really primarily need one person that's like the CEO, co-founder, CTO, CRO, right? Someone in that vein. So I just kind of wanted to understand the balance of resources we needed to allocate a little bit more in detail.
Yeah, maybe I'll start and then I'll get others to weigh in here. For the epicenter, or at the heart of the experience, really is the CEO engaging on the basis of you're getting strategic input and vision for the firm. However, as you then you are mentored through the organizations that the financial institutions you're engaging with, if the next important meeting is to meet with the chief risk officer because that's applicable to your offering, then you're absolutely going to want to bring your one or two heads of the risk. You're going to want to match the content of match the content of your team to who you're meeting with, and that will necessarily change throughout the organization. You're going to want to bring your lead architect to go meet with the chief technology officer with you. So the CEO at the epicenter, I would say, or COO, and then the mix and match according to who you're getting the guidance from. So you're sharing the relevant content and getting and hearing the relevant feedback in the best manner possible.
Got it. That's super helpful. Thank you so much.
Benji, would you add anything to that? So,
no, I think you hit it. I mean, there is nothing like being involved, and you want all the people who could benefit from the feedback involved, even if it means being in New York for some period of time.
Yeah,
where they're not going to be permanently.
I hate getting people's names wrong, so I apologize in advance. Is it Thillen? Apologies if I.
Yep, that's right. That's right, David.
All right, I got lucky. Sorry for that. So your question here in chat. So with this early application process, as I said, you may hear feedback if we have some that we think could improve your application. But then otherwise, no, we run kind of a consolidated process after we've gotten the whole batch together. So it's not on a rolling basis.
Thanks.
One point to add to that question, it's a bit tangential, but sometimes it's not as clear to applicants that the selection and the whole process, I mean, we orchestrate the process, right? But the selection is happening from your target customers in the financial services institutions, and you start getting exposure to them from the moment you apply. So the applications are reviewed by them, and and as you go throughout the process, you get more and more exposure. And when you make it to the finalist week, and if you do, you start getting more exposure to like the broader community. And obviously it's consensus driven in terms of who comes to the program. But we also at times make one-off connections after the finalist week if there's interest from a few financial services institutions and not enough consensus to kind of bring you into the program.
Yeah, that's a great point. Any other questions?
I'll jump in. What's sort of the cadence of the program? Is this, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, or how does the scheduling work? I apologize that that's probably out there somewhere. I just hadn't run across it.
No, I'm smiling just because it's Benji conveyed somewhat somewhat spend some time on the intensity of the program. It certainly is going to feel like 24 hours a day for 12 weeks. I don't know. Obviously so the structure of the program. Let me see if I can answer your question in a more tangible way. Your mentor will spend time with you right from the beginning, having learned about you through the application process. And again, this is if you're selected, you'll then plan out, right? Who are the most important executives to get time with, in what sequence, and meeting with one will lead to an idea to meet with another, but you then get into just an incredible scheduling I'm trying to use a positive word. Let's go with bonanza. So you're then dealing with with scheduling, and sometimes with some of these financial institutions, it may not be someone who's based in New York that you're going to meet with. Maybe for this bank, the chief risk officer or the chief the chief compliance officer or the chief technology officer is based in London or whatever. So it turns into a big scheduling focus to match up when can these executives break free and make time. I will say that they're incredibly good about doing that. These organizations are now really well experienced with the value they get, and they in interacting and with the startups that they mentor. But it really will wax and wane between being hyper scheduled in one moment, and then hopefully catching your breath and in between meetings before the next round of hyper scheduling, working across the different organizations. I don't know, Morteza, I'm not getting to my the front of my brain what are the metrics on the average number of meetings that a startup can expect?
Benji, please feel free to weigh in on this, but it's somewhere between 40 hours to 150 hours, depending on what you're including. But the 2/3 of the time goes with financial services institutions, and the rest of it is kind of split in an office hour format to mentors not necessarily within the financial services institutions directly, right? Or ex-regulators or VCs, et cetera, in an office hour format, and the leadership aspects that Dave talked about.
Okay, so there's the office hours.
I can't be as quantitative, but it's intensive. Yeah, is your job 150 hours is like 15 hours, 13 hours a week for 12 weeks. It's a lot, and that's before you get to all the follow-up and prep.
Yeah, and you're going to feel every bit of excitement and motivation because someone's going to say, oh, and I'd love you to meet with Jane, John, and Jack, and those will be really important meetings, and then you're going to want to, so it snowballs with success and with engagement. So it is really just a very intensive moment of it's an intensive opportunity, and you want to make the most out of it by reserving as much time as possible to be able to have both the planned and unplanned access.
Great, thank you.
All right, we've got a couple more minutes left. I will have us endure a long silence if for any other questions. All right, excellent. Well, there's through the website and the contact information is out there. Please feel free to reach out with questions. This is just an exciting time of year for us because it's so much fun to get to know the new players or the ever growing number of entrepreneurs in the New York area. And what they have to offer. So we're really excited to see your applications. We want to help. We want to create yet another fantastic cohort this year. So reach out with any questions. And good luck. And we'll hopefully see you all soon. Thanks, everyone.
Good luck, everyone.